The hidden history of Somalia. To summarize, a community that used to live in southern Somalia was named Somali Bantu. Throughout their history, Somali Bantus faced many forms of discrimination from the people of Somalia. Before the Civil War, they led very respectable and decent lives, but the Somali Civil War changed this. The Civil War of the 1990s was used as a pretext to steal their land and property. During the war, many Bantus were beaten and murdered. They treated like animals, and their rights violated. The women were raped and even killed if they showed any resistance. The Bantus feared Somali Cushitic, and that's why they didn't stand up to them. The people of Somalia had taken everything from them. They migrated to Kenya, and many of the Bantu in refugee camps applied for asylum in the United States. They were officially classified as persecuted, and then, the United States opened its doors in 2000 to settle many of the Bantu. Part 1. Somalia, a country in the African continent, has been consistently presented by the media as full of mysteries, where numerous tribes and ethnic communities reside. One such significant groups residing in the country is the Somali Bantus. This article explores the real history of Somali Bantus, their appearance, their lifestyle, and their lives among other Somalis. There are two different and major ethnicities reside in Somalia, the Somali Cushitic and the Somali Bantu. The Cushitic live in the northern portion, in an area of barren land, but they have plenty of livestock, including sheep, goats, cows, and camels. In comparison, the Somali Bantu reside in southern Somalia, in an area of agricultural concentration, particularly around and between the Juba and the Shabelle rivers. Traditionally, the Bantus were engaged in agricultural work, although they also took up various other professions, such as carpentry, factory work, painting, and repairing cars or boats. The Bantus and Cushitic differences may appear nil to the eyes of foreign observers. Each group offers a character of unity among them, which is no doubt derived from their ethnic origins and the relative similarity of the physical, economic, and social means that were formed and had evolved. Although the differences between the Somali Bantu and Somali Cushitic immediately can notice to the eyes of a foreign observer, each of them has significant variances. One of the main ones being the Bantu's structure of leadership, which is more hierarchical than that of other nomadic groups. Additionally, they are more settled in and familiar with the region. To conclude, even though the Bantu may have lost some aspects of their traditional culture and values through the years, today, one can speak of the highly distinct Bantu culture and civilization. Part 2. During the peak of slavery and the 19th century Arab slave trade in the east part of Africa, a few Bantu children were stolen from Tanzania. However, slavery was deeply entrenched in the society before foreigners arrived on the African continent to engage in the slave trade. Many fled from slavery and sought the protection of other Bantus who were living in southern Somalia. Over time, they established their communities and managed to maintain some level of autonomy. The Bantus mainly communicate in several dialects, but the two most popular are Mai Mai and Zigwa. The first dialect, Mai Mai, is a commonly used dialect spoken by all Somali Bantus. A minor group uses the other dialect, known as Zigwa, among them. Before the arrival of Italian colonists, the Somali Bantu held authority and leadership in southern Somalia. During this period, the country flourished and experienced peaceful times. When the Italians colonized the country, they transferred power to the Somali Cushitic. Upon gaining authority, the Cushitic indulged in pervasive corruption, practiced discrimination, and deception. Moreover, they stole people's property, lied, and raped the women of other groups. Since then, the Somali Bantu have borne inhumane treatment at the hands of the Somali Cushitic, yet their faith in God has granted them the opportunity to live a wholesome life. Part 3. Somali Bantus are different from the Somali Cushitic in many ways. The Bantus are socially, ethically, and physically not quite the same as the Somali Cushitic. The Somali Bantu people are in good health and have high statures. They have sturdy, muscular physiques, they are intensely powerful and have more significant components. They have big, broad, and flat noses, and they have afros of thick and twisted hair. Most of them have darker skin, just like other Africans. Most of the Somali Cushitic people have dark skin, too, but they have thin noses, and most of them have softer hair. Their bodies' structures are weak, and most of them are not usually found in good health. Further, the clear majority of the Somali Cushitics are unhealthily thin and tall, with their skinny bones. Therefore, Somali Bantus have stronger physical appearances than the Somali Cushitic. Part 4. The Somali Bantu and the Somali Cushitic people behave opposite to one another in terms of patience and violence. Bantu people are cowards who are afraid to commit suicide or spread violence in their community. They can't be convinced to do so even with a lot of wealth. Furthermore, they lack courage, defensive abilities, and self-defense tactics. For instance, if someone kills one of their family members, they will not stop the killer. However, the people from Somalia do not act in similar ways, as they are quite tough and have self-defense abilities. They commit suicide at will and can kill other people when they have a gun or knife. Moreover, they will do anything for money, even if it means disbelieving their faith or murdering their race. The reason they behave this way is that their genes make them inclined to have a mental illness, and that is why they have been bombing each other since the 1990s. The Somali Cushitic people are evil, they corrupt everything wherever they go. Therefore, it is believed that the Somali Cushitic are more courageous than the Bantu people. Part 5. There are two major languages in Somalia, Mai and Maha. The Somali Bantus predominantly speak Mai, and the dominant Somali clans speak Maha. If you read about Somalia, you will only find what has been written by the ruling group. It is not as they claim, their society is neither homogeneous nor egalitarian. Further, it is a myth that people have one language, one culture, one tradition, and one religion. The Somalis live in diverse communities. There are different groups, languages, and societies, but the dominant clan's language imposed on every other Somali groups. All the other languages are denied, refused, or viewed as insignificant. The Bantus and the Somali Cushitic can each understand and speak a little of the other's languages, but they cannot express themselves the way they want. Part 6. The Bantus are an ethnic living in Somalia who has been deprived of their basic rights. Previously, before the Civil War, the Bantus community in Somalia owned 9 states out of the 18 administrative regions. They used to be considered a very respectable community in Somalia. Some Somali Cushitics used to work for them, and others showed up at their houses to beg. However, when the Civil War broke out, the Bantus became defenseless and were deprived of their property by the Somali armed forces. After the Civil War, the Bantus were evicted from their homes, and Cushitics stole everything from them. Somali Bantus had no choice but to work for them to earn a living. Now the Somali Bantus are prohibited to take part in any of the political processes of Somalia. The Somali Bantus have faced various forms of discrimination, including physical assault and emotional blackmailing. Even the presidents of Somalia have denied the existence of Somali Bantus community in their country. Somalia government refuses to accept the rights of Bantus. As per the government, Bantus are not Somali Cushitic or Muslim, therefore they should be deprived of their basic identity, which is their homeland. However, all the Bantus are in fact Muslims and belong to Somalia. The government and the people of Somalia treat the Bantus community as they do not belong in Somalia. They associate them with other countries such as Tanzania, Mozambique, Malawi, or Kenya instead. It is brutal how their land has been taken away from them, their properties looted, and their people raped and killed by force of government. This is some of the serious issues that have been going on in Somalia since the country achieved its independence. This form of treatment for Somalia Bantus is because the government and people fear if the Bantus are given any recognition and power, they will take over the country and overrule them. This is the main reason why the government in Somalia does not support the Bantus community and their rights. The level of treatment given to the Somali Bantus is horrible, and the international community needs to address this issue so that they are given their due rights. Part 7. The Civil War in Somalia was one of the deadliest conflicts in the state in an attempt to wipe and replace the Bantu people with the Somali Cushitic community. The massacre led to the suffering and death of many Bantus, but the intended results were not achieved. Indeed, despite all attempts to eradicate the Bantus from their land, the Somali Cushitic could not succeed. The oppressors of Somalia did not realize that nobody, except Allah, can eliminate a community or group from the earth, as He is the one in control. Notably, Allah created everything, with only Him having the sole mandate to anything He pleases as per His wishes. Thus, this discussion addresses the events of the civil war in Somalia, and how evil intentions to innocent people never succeed. The government may have worked according to the interests of the Somali Cushitic, but their plans did not succeed. For instance, the state convinced the Bantu people to turn in their weapons in the name of peace. The Bantu people were not aware of the Somali Cushitic's evil plan, and they carried to them the few guns they had until it was too late. However, Allah was fully aware of the facts, and He punished them before they attacked the Bantu people. President Siad Barre and General Farah Aidid both wanted to take the Somali Bantu land. They both wanted to remove the Somali Bantus property. However, the only problem was that every tribe wanted to rule when they had taken the Somali Bantu land. As a result, they started fighting, robbing, raping, torturing, and killing one another. Every time a tribe among them was defeated, they would show up at Bantu houses and then looted the Bantus wealth to fight back against their enemies. The Bantus were honest for their actions, and they received their fair share from Allah, whereas the two tribes of Somalis received what they deserved. It establishes the fact that deceivers will never succeed with their plots, and they always end up as losers. Part 8. The people of Somalia had always wanted to rob the Somali Bantus. Sometimes, a group of armed Somali Cushitic came to the Bantus area to steal while the Bantus were praying, and they stopped them from praying, telling them to get up and look around them, asking, "Do you see God? This gun is your God, it can kill you, and it can save your life, so obey the gun, and bring everything you have." The armed Somali Cushitic forced the Bantu people to carry the weight of the stolen items, sometimes, the things weighed over 50 pounds. The Bantu people feared the Somali Cushitic, who made them lift the stolen goods. Some of them tried to fight back against the destructive forces, but the majority did not. The reason was their fear of the assailants, who would come back to kill the people if they showed resistance. The Somali Bantus were so scared of the Somali Cushitic that they did not resist their cruelty. Part 9. The families of Somali Bantu went through the worst maltreatment in the history of humankind. Most of the Cushitic sheikhs and the ignorant among them used to show up at the Bantu houses in different groups again and again. Every day and night they gang raped the Bantu women in front of their families. When the women refused to be raped, the Cushitic shot at their private parts with a gun and watched them die from the pain. After the torment, the Bantus would bury their dead and remain silent, as if the angel of death had killed their people. The Somali Cushitic killed around 30% of the Somali Bantu population for no reason, and no one talks about that. The Somali Bantu women also suffered from inhuman acts that were executed by the people of Somalia. They violated the basic or fundamental human rights of the Bantus. May the curse of Allah be upon those who destroyed the lives of the innocents in this life and the next. Part 10. Somali Bantus had no other options in Somalia and searched for other places to shelter their families. Many Somali Bantus fled from their properties and homes without knowing where they would be going. The Bantus traveled between 2 and 4 weeks to reach the Kenyan border. Some of the Bantus did not survive, as they killed by hyenas, lions, and other animals. As they made a beeline for the Kenyan border, they consumed tree leaves and waited for the rain to drink and cook. Many of them remained alive by cooking with and drinking muddy and diseased water. Numerous maladies, like paleness, spread all over Somalia, where there was a quota for Bantus in the Kenyan healing centers. Many Somali Bantus succeeded in reaching Kenya, but they faced many hardships during this journey. Part 11. The Somali Bantus were still treated horribly, even in the United Nations camps. In 1991, a significant portion of the Somali Bantus and other Somali Cushitic followed them into the UNHCR refugee camps called Dadaab. The animosities of Somali Cushitic are having towards the Somali Bantus, similar to the hate that the devil had towards the Prophet Adam. For example, the only reason the devil followed him was to ruin his life, and the same applies to the Somali Cushitic. However, they isolated into 3 distinct outcast camps called Ifao, Dagahali, and Hagadera. Expecting to discover security in the exile camps, the Bantus settled down, yet after living for just a few years in those camps, they encountered issues comparable to those they had faced in Somalia, including rape, assault, and having whatever they had stolen. These had usually happened when Bantu women went to the woods to gather logs for fuel. The Bantu faced many security issues in the United Nations camps. Part 12. Indeed, the physical attacks of Somali Bantus did not stop when they left Somalia. At the point when the sexual assault and harassment kept on expanding, in the displaced person camps. The Bantu chieftains, one from each of the 3 first refugee camps, asked for the UNHCR to deport them to a new place like Mozambique or Malawi or resettle them to a more secure location in 1997, but the UNHCR authorities from the 3 camps rejected the request. After the dismissal, Somali Bantu leaders sent a memo to Australian authorities who also repudiated. The Bantus then contacted U.S. authorities in 1998, and their demands were satisfied. In 1999, the United States government consented to resettle around 12,000 Somali Bantus refugees, and it was the largest group of African refugees ever identified for political resettlement in the history of the United States of America. The Somali Bantus contacted different governments to seek help. Part 13. The U.S. government agreed to give shelter to many Bantus. Most Somali Cushitic people in the refugee camps never thought that the Somali Bantu people would ever settle in the United States. When the Somali Cushitic heard the news, they were surprised at first, and then they regretted their mistakes. They implored the Bantus to take their money and marry their daughters on the condition that they take them to the United States with them. A few of the Bantu men took their money and left them in the refugee camps, but the vast majority rejected their offers, and the Somali Cushitic people wished they had been Bantus on that day. They cursed themselves for their treatment of the Bantus. Part 14. When the resettlement started, the safety of the Somali Bantu group jeopardized, when the Somali Cushitic threatened to set off bombs in the streets, since they were jealous of Bantus going to America. At first, they had used all the available black magical powers to prevent the Bantus from getting their way to the United States. They resorted to the services of all known sorcerers within the refugee camp, and apparently, lots of animals they sacrificed. For instance, cows and goats they killed. After a series of trials, they found that their evil magic did not work against the Somali Bantu. Consequently, the Somali Cushitic started issuing bomb threats against the Somali Bantu. In response, the International Organization for Migration, IOM, chose an alternative solution by moving and settling the Somali Bantu in other camps situated in Kenya. In 2000, they relocated to a new camp known as Kakuma. The Somali Bantu stayed in this new camp for 3 years before they flown to the USA. About 12,000 Somali Bantu families currently reside in the USA, and they have adopted a lifestyle there their ancestors had never dreamed. Part 15. Many Somali Cushitics travel to Egypt and Libya to get to America. They plan to make money so that they can build on the land that was stolen from Somali Bantu. They are facing the same struggles they made the Bantus go through. The Egyptians kill their women and children, remove their organs and sell them. The Libyans enslave them, they torture the men and rape the women in front of their families. If they try to stop the assaults, they are killed. They have never succeeded with their plans, as they ruined the innocence of Somali Bantus lives and destroyed their dignity for no reason. Wherever they go, they have never been well respected, and they end up living a life of grief, loneliness, sadness, hopelessness, misery, torture, and death. God is punishing them in Egypt, Libya, and against each other because of their evil actions toward the Bantus. To conclude, in this article, I have described in accurate and vivid detail why the Somali government will never reveal the origin and whereabouts of the Somali Bantu people. I have assessed the poor conditions of the Somali Bantu people after the Civil War. Furthermore, I have researched and analyzed the efforts that they made for their survival. I intended to evaluate their strength. I admire their faith, tranquility, resilience, patience, and courage to face all their hardships. If anyone has difficulty in this life, Allah knows everything, and He might remove the misery or torture they are experiencing and replace it with a better place, in this life or the next. God returned to the victims' oppressors the very problems the victims faced. In His benevolence, God took the Bantus from their misery and blessed them with abundance. One should never look down on other human beings because they might become one's savior one day. We should always treat one another in the same way we want to address. God loves those who spread peace, not those who spread violence and corruption. The government of the United States provided a safe and reliable place for the Bantus so that they could live a normal life like the rest of the people in the country. Thank you very much.